Which of the new 12-inch laptops is right for you? I'm Dan Ackerman, and this is Samsung's Ativ Book 9. Now, that's the name Samsung has used on a lot of laptops. What makes this one different is that it's got a 12-inch screen as opposed to a larger screen. And it runs Intel's Core M processor, and it's very slim, very light, and it has a 12-inch better than HD non-touch display. If that all sounds very familiar, that's because it's pretty much essentially the same as this guy that came out at about the same time, Apple's 12-inch MacBook. Again, another 12-inch laptop, higher res, non-touch display, Intel Core M, and again, just about 2 pounds. The difference here, of course, this guy is running Windows, and this is running Apple's OS X operating system. And of course, Apple has very famously restricted this to a single USB Type-C port, while Samsung shows you that even though you've got something that's very small and weighs the same, they actually managed to fit in one full-size USB over here and a headphone jack, and a second full-size USB over here and a micro HDMI port. And that shows you that you don't necessarily have to strip all the ports out to get something this small and this light. What you don't get is that big extra wide face keyboard that Apple has in their version. This is a standard island-style keyboard. It certainly feels a lot smaller typing on it than the Apple version, but you get more of that kind of deep, satisfying click because the keys are actually deeper. Touchpad is fairly big, but without a touchscreen, you really have to rely on those multi-touch gestures that don't work as well in Windows as they do in OS X. Usually on a Windows laptop like this, you use the touchpad for some things. You may tap on the screen occasionally, but again here, that's not going to happen. Performance is certainly good enough, just like on the MacBook version, for casual web surfing, Netflix, streaming HD video. These are not really going to be all-day, everyday systems because of that Intel Core M processor. The biggest difference here between them is that this guy ran for about 7.5 hours on our battery test, showing you that that Core M chip doesn't usually drive all-day laptops. Apple, however, managed to squeeze 11 hours out of pretty much the same hardware. So if you're doing a lot of cross-country flying, want to hang out in the coffee shop all day, that's something to keep in mind. Our other big issue is price. Apple, very expensive, $12.99 for 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig SSD. The Samsung version for the same specs is actually $100 more. It's $13.99, but you can actually cut that down to 4 gigs of RAM and a 128 gig SSD for $11.99. So sometimes it's less expensive, sometimes it's more expensive. I'm Dan Ackerman, and that is the Samsung Ativ Book 9.